Against the company hired to clean up the 2008 TVA coal ash disaster. Millions of pounds of ash and sludge breached a dam in December of 2008. Now people who worked cleaning up the spill have filed a lawsuit. They say they've gotten sick because of exposure to toxic chemicals on that site.
10 News reporter Cole Sullivan was in court today where lawyers laid out their case. Cole?
Robin and John, the 70 plaintiffs in this case are suing a TVA contractor because they say the company didn't protect them enough from toxic chemicals in the coal ash. But legal experts say proving their case is going to be complicated.
Workers say the millions of pounds of ash was only the beginning of the devastation. In a case that began in federal court today, they say they got cancers, hypertension, and other illnesses because of their work cleaning up the massive spill.
The workers are claiming that they have been harmed, and they are sick. There's no question about that. The question is, did the working in the fly ash cause that harm?
Sidney Gilreath is a personal injury attorney. He's not working this case, but has tried others like it.
The defendants have a duty to not expose the workers to an unreasonable risk of harm.
The defendant isn't TVA, but a subcontractor called Jacobs Engineering, hired to clean up the site. Because it's a federal case, there are no cameras allowed inside, but the company argued toxin levels were too low to cause the workers' illnesses.
There are a lot of causes of cancer. That makes it very, very complicated.
Gilreath says because there are so many plaintiffs and their sicknesses are so different, the case will be hard to prove.
If all the plaintiffs had bladder cancer, it'd be a lot easier case.
Lawyers for the workers say Jacobs did not provide enough protection, told workers they were safe, and sent them home every day covered in the black ash.
The case is so complicated that the judge has separated it into two phases. The part that started today just looks at whether Jacobs Engineering had a duty to protect workers, whether they did that, and whether the toxins in the ash were capable of causing their illnesses. This phase alone is expected to take more than 2 weeks. Robin and John?
We'll continue to follow it, Cole. Thank you.